Okay, so now we are live.
Are we? Okay, cool.
Yeah, we are. Woo, woo. We're live. Yeah, okay, we did it. We did it.
Yes, success.
It's like every single technical difficulty in the world,
hmm
which is interesting. But that always happens when you're trying to do something. So let's see here. Okay. All right. I feel like I'm trying to make people camera sick now, like you said earlier.
I'm like trying to hold my phone steady.
Still, right?
Yeah.
So, going. Okay. So it looks like we are good to go. So we're just gonna jump right in. I'm gonna jump right in. So I'm just gonna share why I wanted to do this video, and then we'll jump right into the content. So I wanted to do a video on singleness because I feel like we discussed, like we've discussed so many times, it's just so dismal. It's like people are like, "Hey, are you seeing somebody?" And you're like, "No, okay." And they're like, okay. And it's like the conversation just ends there. But if you answer with yes, I am seeing somebody, then all of a sudden they're like, oh, who are you seeing and where did you meet and tell me about them, blah blah blah. And it's like when
hmm
you're in a relationship, that's when the conversation continues. That's when you're interesting. That's when um, all of a sudden, yeah, I guess it's like your life is that much more valuable if you're seeing somebody. Um, and I don't know why there's so much emphasis placed on that, but I wrote a book called You're Not Condemned, You're Single. And I've been working on this book for a couple of years. It has a lot of insight from different people that I know and admire. And the whole idea of the book, as you can guess from the title, is this idea that singleness is not secondary to dating. It's not secondary to being engaged. It's not secondary to being married. And I know that there are bridal showers and wedding showers and baby showers and showers for
Showers
people
on
who
showers.
are not single. Um, and I think sometimes the emphasis on that, whether it be through the fact that you can pick up a newspaper and a love story or a recent breakup is the front page story, will make you feel like, well, dang, like, am I not successful? I mean, I'm obviously not even front page story worthy if I'm not dating anybody. So I feel like just, even though it's kind of funny to think about and see, it can really just get real. And it can be something that we come to believe when we see that enough. So I want to talk to people who are fighting the good fight of just fighting for self-love, fighting to hold on to the truth, which is that you have inherent value. It doesn't come from a ring. It doesn't come from a man or woman. It is given to you by God.
hmm
And we're not designed to live this life in hopes for the next season. Though it's good to have hope for the next season, it's not designed that we would be kind of salivating and just waiting, tapping our foot, looking at our invisible watches, waiting for that to come.
Yeah.
So that was a mouthful, but long story short, we want to talk about how it's good and fun and normal to be single and how to enjoy that season. So, Kayla, tell us about yourself. Who are you? What do you do? How long have you been single?
Oh Lord. I mean, I'm still single, so I guess technically my whole life. Aside from relationships here and there, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm Kayla. What do you want to know about me? I don't know. I am from Florida. Currently, I am living in Minnesota. Totally a departure from, uh, yeah, all things comfortable to me. But um, I work as an OBGYN. I'm doing my training, my residency training. So that's why I'm here. I am probably still single partially because I work 80 hours a week as a
Wow.
OBGYN. Pretty time consuming. So Practically, it's just not um, easy to find time to date. But then also for me personally, it just doesn't feel like a priority right now. I don't think I would make a good girlfriend or wife right now either. So that's just not where God has me. But um, yeah, what else do you want to know?
Okay, so what's the worst part about being single? Feel free to list a couple of things. I know there's more than one.
Yes, sometimes there are. Definitely. The worst thing.
And you can say for yourself or just, things that you've heard or come
Yeah.
across. So it doesn't have to be, like this is what you're dealing with.
Yeah. I would kind of say, I mean, I guess obviously, as somebody who hopes to get married one day, whenever the time is right, um, I mean, everybody who's single that desires marriage gets lonely at times. So obviously, learning to cope with that and learning how to manage and honor God through that and not feel like um just the things that God teaches you. I mean, I don't want to say that's the worst thing because you can learn a lot through those times, but they're definitely not pleasant times when you're feeling lonely. I think probably even worse, I would say you already kind of hit on it, Amani, when you said um that the expectation other people have that being single is somehow like exorbitantly abnormal or like something's wrong with you, particularly among like other non-Christian or secular people. I mean, that's kind of the the way that it's framed. It's sort of like, why aren't you dating? Of course, I mean, other every normal person I know dates. So like, what's wrong with you that that's not something that you're, doing on a regular basis, or I don't know, just the different ways that you um,
Right.
live life as a single um, Christian looks very abnormal to people. And sometimes that just leads to interesting conversations, and other times to self doubt and making you question God or your relationship or where He has you. But so those are difficult to navigate too. Um, And something probably that's not even talked about often is sometimes just the unrealistic expectations that people that are in the church have for single people. I think sometimes people are like, oh, you're single, like you should have so much time, you can volunteer, you can do this. Um, you can come like nanny my children. I don't know. I think there is just a little bit of misunderstanding, or I think a lot of times people in the church maybe glorify their singleness, or they think that their single period in life, just given like historically people were married a lot younger in previous generations, they sort of equate their experience as a single person until they were, who knows, like 21 or whatever, to
Mm-hmm.
to mine as a single person at 30. And those are not the
Mm-hmm.
same thing. As a working woman, like my experience as a single person is just totally different. And so I think other people, even in the church, will have certain expectations about what I should be available to do, or like how I should um, manage my singleness versus compared to like how they did theirs. And um, it's just different. So that's not always the most pleasant thing to come across either.
Right. You touched on something, and I just want to have you elaborate for a second between dating and courting, because I feel like a lot of times people aren't really single; they're just not married, but they have somebody. It's like this
Mm-hmm.
thing where you have to have like the singleness to
Yeah.
work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I guess I haven't read like a ton about the difference maybe between
Mm-hmm.
dating and courting. And I know a lot of people like will call them different things. But when I think of courting, or when I hear that term, what I think of is like dating with intentionality, like the intention of getting married as opposed to just like casual dating. Is that kind of what you mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I definitely think Yeah, that most people, probably young people in general, date casually. That's again seen as sort of like the expectation, um, that everybody is doing it is ever present. Um, it's sort of seen as just like fun, a way to like meet people, hook up, do whatever, have fun before you're actually like ready to settle down. I think there's like nothing
Mm-hmm.
God honoring about that. So as Christians, I feel like the goal of dating is for marriage. Like, I mean, in the Bible, there is not really a concept of casual dating, and I know, some people would try to argue that the Bible is outdated, but I would say that it's the word of God, which is timeless. So if there were, if that's something that God didn't have his people do years and for centuries, why would we all of a sudden think that that's a good idea now?
Mm-hmm.
So I really think, yeah, I think the Christian who is dating, um, should be, seeking out at least qualities that they could see in somebody that they would want to marry, or that should be the intention. The intention should never be like, I'm just having fun, even though I know like this is going nowhere.
Mm-hmm. Right. And what are some of the best things about being single?
Well, for me, like I said, right now, I feel like dating isn't a priority, which I have to remind myself sometimes that that's a
Mm-hmm.
luxury that I have. Like, I probably, I mean, I don't know. I don't know where I would be. But I may not have the kind of flexibility to like work to do OBGYN, which I love. I love my job. It does feel like my top priority right now, which I don't want that to be the case for forever. But I definitely think one of the benefits of being single and the kind of line of work that I'm in, um, just gives me a lot more flexibility to like focus on those goals my entire life, basically. Um, and I know a lot of other people, I don't know. I mean, it's just harder to do something like residency with a family or a husband or a spouse that you also just have to consider time with and that sort of thing. So I definitely know personally, being able to focus on career goals or any aspirations as a single person is something that just practically you're freed to do without having to accommodate the needs of other people, because other people are not, I mean, somebody isn't, it's unrealistic to expect somebody to just kind of meld into your plan without having any desires or plans or aspirations of their own. um, so I think there's that. I do feel like there is I don't know, a certain level of intimacy that you can foster with God if you're a Christian.
Mm-hmm.
There's, I mean, I kind of am biting my words because a lot of, like I said earlier, some people assume like as a Christian or as a single person, like you have tons of time, and you do have more time to yourself, but that doesn't necessarily mean that that time to yourself isn't already accounted for. So, when I say that, like, you don't always have time as a Christian single, it doesn't mean that you don't physically have time, but it means, I don't know, you spend your time doing other things. But one of the things that you can
Right.
spend probably more intimate time, alone time doing is spending it with God, whether that's reading scripture or reading other books that are related to faith, or I don't know, however people like to do that. So I think there's more opportunity to just foster like a really deep intimacy with God. Um, yeah, practically on a day to day basis, like I don't really have to consider anybody else's um, plans, feelings, anything but my own, which sounds really selfish, but at the end of the day, that's just the reality. Like I don't have, I like, I'm allowed to just focus on my own goals and things right now. So that's probably the best benefit of being single.
Right. So the title of the book is You're Not Condemned, You're Single. Can you shed some insight on why people, or even yourself in the past or currently, wherever you might be, may feel like singleness is a curse? It may feel like it is.
Yeah. Um, well, again, I feel like, we kind of already talked about, some of the societal pressures to be dating, especially to be dating casually as opposed to courting or dating with intentionality. And so people that don't, adopt that view for dating will sometimes feel like an anomaly. I think you might feel condemned because, I mean, it's not necessarily what you want. And desires are real, like desires to be married, and lust is a real temptation for a lot of us. And all of those things are um, just harder to deal with as a single. I mean, one of the blessings of marriage is that, there's an outlet. um, and so, yeah, I think a lot of people feel like, kind of overwhelmed by their desires and um, maybe let the emotional aspect of that take over. Um, or just we allow the loneliness or whatever sort of emotional piece to just um, make us forget about some of the blessings of singleness. And yeah, I mean, I think God essentially did create us for a lot of us for a relationship. Um, and so as a single person, like the goal should be to be fostering really intimate relationships with your family, with friends, with your church family, platonic relationships. But a lot of times when you're not in a romantic relationship, there's a very easy tendency to idolize that as something that will, um, potentially fulfill all your deepest desires, which we know is not true or should, we read in scripture that that's not true. That God's the only one who can really fulfill the deepest desires of our heart. But um, there's this tendency, I think, to believe the lie that romantic relationships will. And so, um, whenever you don't have that, um, just the emotional piece can allow you to kind of wallow in those feelings, which is never healthy, but is a very easy thing to do.
So you were breaking up a little bit.
Oh.
Would it be possible to rephrase just the beginning part about marriage being an outlet for something? I'm guessing you were talking about, but
Um,
that's just a guess.
desire for intimacy, I'll say.
Right?
Yeah. I said, there's a lot of emotional desires for marriage, but then there are like physical reasons why people desire to be married too, for, sexual intimacy and other forms. And so one of the blessings of marriage is that it is an outlet for that, a healthy, God given one, as opposed to one that could be really emotionally damaging outside of that context. That's all. Can you hear me?
Right. Most of it, but it was kind of breaking up. Am I breaking up to you on your screen?
Just a little, not a whole lot, but it like kind of freezes.
Oh, did you say it kind of freezes a little bit?
Yeah. And your picture just went out. Okay, and now it's back. Okay, I think. Oh,
Okay, try saying something now.
okay. Can you hear me now? Is the am I sounding at least consistent in some way, or is it breaking up?
It's breaking up. I can see you pretty clearly, but it's breaking up a little bit.
That was better right then. Just now, I don't know if there was anything that changed from your end. No.
Okay. No, but it looks good. You look good, and you sound
Okay.
good.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. So I want to get really practical. What would you mentioned a couple of steps thus far, and thank you for that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, one of the things that I wish I could have read a blog on or heard someone talk about too, like, okay, we've established that I should be happy or with that. Okay, cool. But
You're kind of breaking up a little.
on a Friday night? What do I do on a Sunday night after church? What do I do, like with my time? It's not how singleness was portrayed in movies, like watching movies and eating a pint of ice cream or gallons of ice cream by myself. What are uplifting things that I can do that might help me adjust my mindset or that I can do while I adjust my mindset on a practical level. Some people really hate the movies and restaurants
Yeah.
alone. That
Mm-hmm.
thing.
So that was breaking up a little bit, but I got the gist for sure. And let me know. I'm going to try to answer, but let me know if I'm breaking up for you or missing anything, okay? Um,
So far, so
okay, good. Yeah. So I think practically, well, I think that's one of the best benefits of Christian community. Um, if you're a single person, like hanging out with other single people, single Christian friends, um, that also like are looking for things to do on the weekend at night. Like I usually never have a hard time finding somebody to like do something with me if I want to not be in my house like wallowing. but but I think that's one of the reasons why it's important to like connect with like-minded people that are in like maybe a similar life stage as you, and just like be there for each other and make plans and do things and don't just sit at home by yourself, because um, isolation never did any Christian any good. Um, but I also think that like God has given us so many resources, um, means of grace, if you will. Sometimes they're called for, um, just connecting with Him on an intimate level. And again, that's what I mentioned is one of the biggest benefits of being single is that you have time to invest really earnestly and deeply into your relationship with God. And I think He's given us His word in written form for you to feel close to Him by reading. Um, there's prayer for you to just like voice your feelings, your like deepest, darkest, whatever, most intimate feelings to God. He wants to hear those. Um, there's worship, music. There's once he's creating audio in Anchor, your audience.
sorry. I literally to interview you on the phone. Phone and like answer this last question again, just in case people couldn't hear you.
Was it
like, talking? I was like, oh God,
yeah.
no.
I was like,
It was so counterproductive. Okay, so sorry. Continue.
Could you hear me, or was a lot of it breaking up, or that was going to be the backup? Hello, hello.
Okay. Yeah, I can't hear what you just said.
No.
I hear what you just said. So what I'm gonna do is this. I'm going to call, and then I'll do just like a quick interview, like via phone, where I can hear you.
Yeah. I think
and then I'll share both. And so I'll edit this so that we can like sound, because it was so good. We've been talking for like, I think for the first 15, you
it was pretty
sounded
clear.
good. And so
Okay.
call you and I'll call you on the interview question. So
Yeah.
then they'll do that.
Okay. Let's do that because it is kind of breaking up more and stuff. So I want to be
Yeah,
heard.
see, no, I just see your mouth.
I can't hear you.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Bye.
Okay.